Hi everyone, how are you? I'm doing back-to-back Facebook Lives today, so if you just saw my previous video, I hope that you enjoyed that and that was of value to you. And if you're wondering why I'm doing two, it's because I've got two very valuable topics and I've got a semi-busy day tomorrow, but I want to make sure that I address this topic. So if you're listening in, I'm just about to talk about drugs not always being the problem, but sometimes drugs being the solution for people's challenges and the best solution that they perceive. So if you or somebody else that you know, and by the way, it's not always drugs, I'm going to be talking about the way that some people utilize drugs or sex or alcohol or social commitments or anything as a strategy to avoid pain and to gain pleasure. So this comes from working with hundreds of clients that have come to me and say, Emmanuel, I have a drug addiction. And I remember one client that came to me and said, Emmanuel, I smoke marijuana every single night. And when I spoke to her, I said, well, I think you think that the marijuana is a problem, but I can't help but think that with the amount of clients I've worked through, that you're utilizing the drug as a solution to a way that you're feeling emotionally. Now, this particular client said, wow, I never thought about it like that before. So while we were actually investigating when she actually used marijuana, I said to her, well, let's go through your day and find out when you actually utilize this drug and what you're getting out of it. Otherwise, we may not truly understand why you're actually utilizing it. And what we found was that during the day, she would work really hard, avoid whatever challenges that she was facing. And then when she got back home later on that night, then when everything quieted down, then all of the challenges would start to occupy time and space in her mind. And she felt that she couldn't avoid them anymore and she was stuck with her challenges. The minute that her challenges started to come up and occupy time and space in her mind, her thoughts, and time and space in her body, her emotions, now that's when she'd have marijuana. And then she'd smoke a joint as a way to actually help her escape her problems. So what you actually have here is a link where most people create the association that the drug is the problem. Most certainly the drug is going to have certain impacts and effects, but the root cause for actually being stimulated to take the drug for her came from not managing her mental states and not managing the things that were occupying time and space in her mind. So I actually took the time to explain to her how and why things occupy time and space in our minds. So if you or somebody that you know is experiencing the desire or the need to look for quick fixes, once again, whether it's drugs, sex, alcohol, socially connecting with other people and feeling they constantly need that support, etc., then this may be highly relevant to you. As we grow through life, as we see and perceive the universe, we store information physiologically and psychologically. In other words, we feel and see things within the human mind and the body. So if you're growing up and a certain event occurs when you're 5 years old and you perceive that to be an extreme traumatic event, it doesn't have to be a post-traumatic stress disorder, just something that you felt stressed about. You have 5 senses: see, hear, touch, taste, and feel. And within that specific moment when that event occurs, you're going to lock on and create associations in relevance to that event. And if something similar to that occurs in the future, then what you may find is that you'll end up having that as a trigger. So, hi Teresa, great to have you on board. I hope you enjoyed this topic, by the way. So, if something similar happens in the future, so let's say, for example, I'm growing up and for some weird situation, I end up getting in a fight on the streets and the guy that attacks me wears a certain style of clothing, talks a certain way, and attacked me or came at me in a certain way. If in the future I'm somewhere and I see something that reminds me of that, another guy wearing similar clothes, talking in a similar way, my body is going to lock onto that previous past event. And that's going to occupy time and space in my mind. It's going to have real estate space there and occupy time and space in my body. And I'm going to have a reaction directly proportionate to how much I've gotten or haven't gotten over that past event. As human beings, we can collect so much of this baggage that we end up transitioning through our lives, not knowing that unconsciously we have got so many triggers and anchors and things that could pop up at any time and literally occupy time and space in our minds. Now, why do things occupy time and space in our minds? Because a lot of people think that we're here to delete our negative thoughts. But there's a wisdom in terms of the way that the body's created, and there's a reasoning as to why it does some of the things that it does. We have a central nervous system. Think of that as the brain. It's the governance system. And it sees and perceives the external environment outside of us. So whenever something occurs, if I have 10 people viewing a specific event outside of them, I'll have one person that may have an extreme post-traumatic stress disorder, another person that may feel nothing at all, and 8 variations in between. So it's not necessarily what occurs, but each individual's perception of what occurs, which will dictate and determine the chemical and hormone balance inside of their body. You may know this as an emotional response, how they emotionally see and perceive and feel about that specific event or thing. Now, For each individual, based on how they saw and perceived the external event outside of them, it's going to have a different impact on the body. So let's talk about the impact on the body, because that'll let you understand what occupies time and space in the mind and why people actually feel the need to maybe go for a drug or some kind of stimulant as a way to help them overcome and get a pleasure and get out of their pain. So let's say something's occurred outside of me and I perceive what's occurred. It's not what's occurred, it's my perception of it. I've got a ratio of perception. It's a ratio of positive to negative. So if somebody gave me 2 sheets of paper right now and said, on the right, write all the positives, on the left, write all the negatives, I could write all of them down and then have a ratio between them. Let's say it's 7 negatives to 1 positive. If I have 7 negatives to 1 positive, the central nervous system takes that and it takes that perception and that ratio of perceptions and it sends it to the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic standing for auto, automatic, nomic means governance, nerves, they're your messenger signals like FedEx, and then system, and in this case it's talking about your organs. And every organ actually relates to different chemicals and hormones that it releases and different emotions. That's why your emotions feel differently. So let's have a look at the autonomic nervous system and let's treat it like it's a bar at a nightclub or something. And if you have a ratio that's extreme, the positive to the negative is highly imbalanced, 7 negatives to 1 positives. It's like you've gone to the bar and imagine that every single emotion is a different cocktail. You've ordered a specific style of cocktail and the ratio determines how strong that cocktail is. Because you know if you have anxiety of the future and it's something that you perceive as extreme, 6 to 1, 7 to 1, 10 to 1 in ratio, you're going to have more of a feeling inside of you and your heart's going to race more. So the autonomic nervous system automatically takes that information from the brain and creates feedback, which is your emotions throughout your chemical and hormone imbalances, which is what quite often you'll hear in psychiatry. A person has a chemical and hormone imbalance, and that's what you'll experience. That damages the body. If you look at anxiety, for example, you're not meant to overwork certain organs, much like the heart, and increase that level of adrenaline running through the body. So the body has to communicate with you. And the way that it does that is by 2 simple ways. Occupies time and space in your mind and occupies time and space in your body. So every single time that you have imbalanced perceptions and those go to an extreme and they're damaging the internal body, then the body is actually going to create an emotion and a feedback. And imagine your mind as a big screen projector and imagine your body as a tiny apartment. That's why whenever you feel that you're going through extreme challenges, you can't get it out of your mind. It's like a big screen projector playing the same thing over and over again. You feel like you're going crazy. I know I've had that in my life. And your body is like a small apartment where the thermostat is completely broken and it's extremely high or the temperature is extremely low. And in either one of those, you can't get comfortable and you can't escape it. You're not meant to escape those emotions. You're meant to equilibrate them and bring them into balance. And I teach clients how to do that on a yearly basis. So when clients that I've worked with have told me that they're taking drugs as an avoidance or to get a pleasure and avoid their pain, it's because things are occupying large amounts of time and space in their mind or time and space in their body. They may have tried other strategies that people have recommended to them, but they've either taken too long or they felt that they're not working. So in order to try and compensate, because imagine that, like I said, the thermostat's broken and your body has not been feeling right and you've been feeling emotions for days, weeks, months or years to an extreme, and your mind hasn't been able to get something out of there, then it's quite common for people to create some kind of strategy to get a pleasure to avoid their pain. Otherwise, life feels like it's too painful. So know that whether it's you or somebody else that is finding themselves sometimes taking drugs or going out and having certain strategies or quick fixes that you constantly find that you're in the need of, there's 2 things that I may say are occurring in your life. Number 1, you may not be living a fulfilling life, doing what you love and loving what you do. You may feel that life is just pointless, and that's one reason to look for some kind of stimulant in order to make life much more exciting. And the second one is that you may have a lot of things from your past or things that have occurred in your life that are occupying time and space in your mind and your body that you feel are highly painful, and you're looking for some kind of strategy in order to avoid that, and the drugs or whatever it is that you're taking may be the best way that you know how. So if you're looking for a way out of that, I would love to connect with you. I'd love to talk to you. If you know somebody that's experiencing that, I'd love to connect with them. Feel free to write to me or write to this specific video or PM me personally if you feel it's something that's much more personal that you'd like to discuss. And I'd love to share with you different ways that may not involve running to a marijuana or different drugs and living with the effects of those afterwards, and strategies that you can utilize to empower your life. So I hope that's been of value to you or somebody that you care about. Stay inspired and know that drugs aren't always a problem. Sometimes people are utilizing them as a solution for their problem. Ciao.